In this video, you'll learn how to tell whether a peer-reviewed article is primary or secondary research. A primary source is a direct source of information. Articles reporting on a study that was directly conducted by the authors are primary sources, since the researchers are reporting directly to you without other people's interpretations getting in between. There is no middleman in a primary source. An article that is a primary source usually asks a research question or states a hypothesis. It identifies a specific research population and will describe a specific research method that is used. The research is testing or measuring something, and the article will include a methods section. It will also include a results section. You'll sometimes hear this kind of study referred to as empirical research. Different kinds of primary sources include pilot studies, cohort studies, survey research, case studies, lab notebooks, clinical trials and randomized clinical trials, dissertations. Some of these sources are peer-reviewed and some are not. A secondary source is a mediated or interpreted source of information. Secondary source articles often summarize, compare, or evaluate primary information in studies. Meta-analyses, for instance, pool the results of many different individual studies to draw conclusions based on a very large number of individual results. Different kinds of secondary sources include reviews, systematic reviews, and meta-analyses. Newsletters and professional organizations' websites, practice guidelines and standards, clinical care notes, patient or client education sheets, books or book chapters, and encyclopedia entries, including in subject-specific encyclopedias. Again, some of these, like the systematic reviews, are usually peer-reviewed articles, whereas other sources, like patient education sheets, are not. To figure out what kind of source you have on your screen when you've done a search for peer-reviewed articles, look for a methods section. Was the research done in a lab, in the field, or by working directly with the people being studied? If so, you probably have a primary source. If the research was done in libraries or databases, it is a secondary source. We can tell that this article is a primary source by looking at the abstract. The methods section explains that the article is reporting on a randomized controlled trial. It specifies exactly how many people were studied and, in this case, what kind of intervention was applied. This article is a secondary source. When we look at the methods section of this abstract, we can see that the researchers looked for existing studies that had studied people with certain medical and lifestyle factors. They then performed a meta-analysis on all of those studies' results to draw the conclusions in this article. Even primary sources usually summarize the existing literature on the topic before they describe their own study. This is typically called a literature review or a review of the research. A primary source's discussion section will also usually compare its study's findings with what previous researchers had concluded. Hopefully now you can spot the difference between scholarly articles that are reporting primary research and ones that are secondary sources. If you have any questions, please ask a librarian. We love to help.